I've been working with Doug for 2 years. Doug is the manager of the New Ventures program at the Research Foundation at SUNY. So for those of you who are not familiar with SUNY and how we work, all of the SUNY campuses work under the umbrella of the Research Foundation. When it comes to funding that comes into state universities, it's managed by the Research Foundation. So besides managing funding, they also offer great programs, which Doug is a part of in the New Ventures program, and it aids many university academic spinouts with services that will help companies scale out of the university and into society to make an impact. So it's been great working with Doug for the first 2 years of my career here at UAlbany. I'm looking forward to learning from you today.
It's been a pleasure working with you as well, and always look forward to continuing to work with you. And glad to be here today, spending this time with everybody and talking about advisory boards and how you should approach advisory boards and think about them and learn the differences between advisory boards and board of directors. And so with that, I guess we'll hop right into it. So one of the questions I get asked the most is, what is an advisory board? Why would I need one of these things? I'm an early stage tech startup company. Advisory boards seem to be something, for really large companies. Why do I need it at this stage? And what would make it different from a board of directors? So it's a question I'm asked all the time. A lot of people, if you make assumptions about what it is, you start assembling an advisory board without, really knowing what it is and, what the purpose is. Sometimes it's almost a self-defeating exercise. So today we're going to, look at what an advisory board is, what differentiates it from a board of directors, and then more practically, how you go about assembling a good advisory board that will help you develop your company. So one of the big differences between advisory board and a board of directors is, as you can see here on this slide, it's based in what these boards are legally authorized to do. So as you can see, board of directors, there is corporate law that governs how board of directors, are operating and what they can do for the company. And so they are legally authorized to make decisions when a board of directors convenes and they make a decision for a company. That decision is binding, and the company should follow through on what the board of directors determines is the proper path for the company. Board of directors get to vote on decisions for the company, whereas advisory boards not authorized to make any decisions. There's no voting rights. There's not this no legal authority for an advisory board to make any sort of decisions for the company. So I would say that is, if you want to get the first differentiator to really spell it out, what makes an advisory board different from a board of directors? There's no legal authority to plan out anything for the company. Following up on that, advisory board members, they don't take actions for the company. They are accountable to the CEO and the management team. So advisory board members can discuss with the management team, what they should be doing with a certain technology to bring it forward, let's say, or what they should be doing in terms of which direction should they take the business. But they can give that advice, but that advice is not in any way binding, and there's no liability on the advisory board member for giving that advice. Whereas the board of directors, as you can see here, accountable to the shareholders as opposed to the CEO and the management team, although they work with the CEO and the management team. And the legal liability is high. So, your decisions carry a lot of impact. There's legal consequences for things you may do as a board of director member. So taking a look at this, when you're thinking about, how you go about choosing a board of directors or an advisory board, and you're putting people into these positions, whether or not, it's someone on the board of directors to actually make policy that's tied into, backed by corporate law, or if it's an advisory board where it's simply, giving expert advice to a company, you're looking for certain things. So with an advisory board, you're looking for a member who has specific expertise, who is able to tackle very specific issues for the company. Now, whether that is, those specific issues could be some sort of technical issue. An advisory board member can advise on what that technical issue is. They may advise on a particular market that you're trying to penetrate. They may advise on some public policy. So it's very, very narrow focus. Board of directors' job is to, as I said earlier, determine the policy for the company, make decisions where the company is going to go, what agreements they sign into. They adopt the strategy for the company, and they also make sure that the company is not running afoul of any kind of legislation that would get the company into trouble. The way advisory boards and board of directors operate is different as well. So with an advisory board, we have very informal meetings. They meet as needed, whereas board of directors will usually have a meeting that is set in their bylaws, usually quarterly. Those meetings will be very formal. There will be minutes taken. Those minutes will be circulated. So, even in that respect too, you can see that there's quite a bit of a difference between the way these two boards operate. So now that kind of what those basics are, what makes an ideal advisory board? I mean, we can talk all day about what the differences are, but how do you know when you have an ideal advisory board that's going to help move the needle on your company's commercialization efforts, and when you do not? So let's delve into that a little bit. So we're going to take a look here at a high potential team from within the SUNY system, Scalaxa Materials. And I'm going to open this up here to audience input here. Can anybody out there or anybody want to put in the comments or come on live here and tell me what you think makes this slide particularly impactful for an advisory board team? PhD start power. Thanks, Anthony. Diversity of experts. Everyone has the title doctor. It's discipline diverse. Instills confidence. Well, actually, I've kind of not told the truth here to everybody. This is actually not such a great slide. So when we see a slide like this, I mean, the folks who are on there could be very well qualified to give their input to the company on a technical end. However, yes, exactly. Too many PhDs, too many scientists. So this is a kind of slide when you're in a pitch competition. Afterwards, when the judges get together, they say, I really like that company, Scalaxa, but they had far too many academics on their advisory board. Ask everybody to take a look at this slightly improved slide here. Think about what you saw on the last slide and think about what you see on this slide, and let me know what your thoughts are on this revision of this slide. More diversity on expertise. Some are from industry. Business related. Yep. So So yeah, I think we get really into it when we say, yeah, there's more diversity of expertise here. There's folks from industry. As you see, we still do have Dr. Lars Halvers from University of Oslo representing the academic end of things. I think it's always okay to have other academics on your slide. You just want to temper that with having other folks from other areas of expertise. So looking at this new and improved advisory board for Scalaxa. You see, we have Bruce Cannon from Aero Essentials Business Consulting. He can, if this were, and this is actually not a real company, by the way. This is a made up company, but if this was a real company, somebody like Bruce Cannon can certainly, fill in any kind of, gaps for the management team where they may lack essential business expertise, especially in any particular area. Bruce Cannon looks like he would be in an aviation related business consulting firm. So always good to have somebody like that, even though he's a consultant. Perfectly good as an advisory board member. There is a version where you can have too many consultants, just like you can have too many academics. So you also want to be careful. You want to make sure not everybody is a consultant on your advisory board. To the left of Bruce Cannon, we have Adele Petrie, Emerging Technologies at Boeing. Somebody like that would indicate that, yes, if she's willing to spend time with Scalaxa Materials, probably there's something there with this company that Boeing is very interested in. She's on the advisory board to help them along, maybe deliver a product that Boeing would eventually be interested in. If we look down to Dr. Srini Das, Sustainable Aviation Solutions Foundation. Dr. Das could be providing input on, how to make Scalaxa materials more environmentally friendly or compliant in some way with environmental standards. Having somebody like that on your advisory board is always a strength to the company. And as I said, Dr. Halvis could be providing some specialized knowledge that he has on the academic end, which would justify his place here on the advisory board team. Um,
Doug, can I ask a question? It's Brett.
yes, go ahead, Brett.
The great examples. Looks like you had some fun creating those fictitious board members. In terms of recruiting people to your advisory board, can you offer the group any guidance on duplication of effort or what to avoid? Because often there is that feeling that you need to stack in certain areas. What do
Mhm.
you see from your experience, and can you offer any guidance to the group on that?
Yeah, sure. So further on at the end of this, towards the end of this presentation,
Okay.
there's going to be recruiting, well, kind of recruiting case studies where real companies have brought in folks, and we'll talk about how they eventually got those folks into the company to serve as advisory board members. But I would say basically what you're looking to do here is to make sure that any gaps that you have in knowledge, in expertise in your company are going to be covered by the advisory board. So nobody ever expects a startup, to be, really great in every area, right? So you're a tech startup, you've probably got the techs covered, being academic, specializing in tech field. So you probably have that part covered. It's usually like maybe you need to figure out where is your market? Who's going to be your first customer? So maybe that, is a gap that has to be filled. Or maybe it's something like, you need to speak to some sort of government regulation. And so you need that gap filled. So I would say wherever there's a gap filled, you want to have a person for that. So you kind of don't want to like have like three people for the same thing. It's like I would look at it as, one person per, knowledge or expertise gap.
Doug, we have two more questions on this topic.
Hmm.
Uh, do you think having someone from the law background would be helpful?
Yeah, I think certainly. Yeah, having somebody like that would always be an added value to the team for sure.
And the second question is, one of the members was from a consulting firm. Can you comment on your opinion on a hired gun versus someone who has an organic interest in the company or the product?
Yeah, so I wouldn't look at like consultant as a dirty word or anything like that. I mean, sometimes you need to have knowledge, and the only way you can get that is by hiring that person to come in. Of course, you always want to have somebody who has an organic interest in the company or product. But as we're going to talk about here in compensation, it generally does come down to, how is that person going to spend time with the team? Are they going to be compensated somehow? Or what are the expectations for that? Let's move forward to the next slide, and we will. It's a very good segue into this next section. So, board meeting pizza fallacy. And I think this is related to the question I was just asked. I've heard it said, you can get a board of advisors at an early stage. Don't worry about having to pay anybody anything. If people are organically interested in your company, they would probably come over just to have a pizza with you, talk about the company, give you some advice, and send you on your way. I have never seen that really happen. In my experience, the teams that I've assisted here over the years, usually if you have an advisory board member who is willing to spend quite amount of time with the company on an ongoing basis, providing advice that is impactful. Usually they will want to see something more than a slice of pizza at a meeting. And it's like, anything else, kind of you get what you pay for. And so, as I said, it's, most of the folks that I have seen coming into teams will generally ask, what is my compensation as an advisory board member? Many folks who have good information that can help you move the needle on your company, like Mr. Krabs here, I'm willing to give up his Krabby Patty recipe. A lot of folks who can serve as advisors feel that their advice is valuable, and maybe not necessarily is something that should be given for free. We do have like some rule of thumb for assigning equity, if that's the case, how you would compensate an advisory board member. Generally, from studies that have been done, equity ranges for advisory board members goes anywhere from 0.05% for Series A teams to 0.21% for pre-seed companies. But that is, there's all different situations. Not every team is the same. Not every board of advisors is the same. This is just, numbers that have been reported over time. Important thing is if you are bringing on an advisory board member and you're going to be compensating in some way, whether that's through equity or some sort of direct compensation, that you want to make sure that you do have a formal agreement, that you have specific roles and responsibilities, all spelled out in that agreement, and also that your commitments are in line, that you know what you're going to get from an advisor, and the advisor knows what to expect from you. Also, there should be a clear understanding of what shares or options to the company are being granted for the advisory board members' time. There should be a vesting schedule based on time or milestones, things that you're hoping that the advisory board member will be helping your company to achieve, or some kind of combination of time and milestones. And very importantly, your agreement should cover confidentiality and intellectual property terms. So, as I said earlier, we're going to take a look at some case studies here to see, how is it, we know all these things now about advisory boards, what's the difference between board members, what you should be looking for, how you set them up, but how does a company actually go out and acquire an advisory board member? And it can be daunting. I will not tell you that that's an easy task to bring, well-qualified people onto your team who are going to deliver impact. It does take a combination of skills, and a combination of activities that you will need to do in order to find those people. And some of them are probably very familiar to you. Networking, of course, you got to get out there, you got to work with people, find out who's in your space that can actually help you. You can go to conferences to meet people there. And I would say probably one of the biggest factors that I've seen here, probably playing a big hand in whether or not you can assemble a really good advisory board, is luck. And when I say luck, I don't mean like scratch a lottery ticket kind of luck. It's, as the Roman statesman Seneca once said, luck is where opportunity meets preparation. So I think, like, if you're out there and you're preparing your company for success, you're making good decisions about what kind of knowledge you need to move your company forward, then I think you're going to be prepared to take advantage of opportunities when they arise, for you to meet and then bring on that advisory board talent.
Doug, we do have a question about timing
Mhm.
of starting a board and the quantity of members that should be on your board.
Yep. So timing, I don't think it's ever too early to start an advisory board. I mean, you can have an advisory board with one member as an advisory board member if that person is going to bring value to your team and helps you answer questions about which direction your company should be moving, or which direction your technology should be moving in its development. I don't think it's ever too early to bring on that person. As far as number of advisors, I think that goes back to something we had discussed earlier. You kind of want to find what your knowledge gaps are and plug those gaps. And so I would say, you don't want to duplicate folks who have the same knowledge or expertise. And you probably want to figure out, what are the main, the most important areas. So, I mean, it's probably possible to come up with, 20 knowledge gaps, but I would say, limit them. And a good reason for limiting them too is, if you're going to be compensating people and they're going to be getting, little fractions of equity, you don't want to be filling up your advisory board with, like, 24 people for sure. You want to keep it small. You want to keep it lean and impactful. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so we're going to look at this. This is I'm leaving out real names of companies here, but these are these case studies are coming from actual SUNY startups, and ways that these particular startups have come to bring well qualified people onto their advisory boards. So in this case study number one, we have a customer to advisor. So here we have a startup that was working with a biz dev executive. And so what this startup was trying to do was trying to get this biz dev executive's company to test some samples, purchase some samples of its product, run it through its machine, see how it worked. During this period, the industrial partner underwent a shakeup. And so that business development executive was amicably moved from his position. So he left the company under good terms and was still very interested in seeing the startup's product eventually come to his old company. And so he joined the startup as an advisor to help accelerate that product development for the benefit of his former employer. So, that's one route where, as you say, preparing to take advantage of opportunity is a form of luck. I would say, yeah, that's, a very good demonstration of that. So here we have another SUNY startup. They were looking for an investment from a strategic VC. So at that time, the person that they had connected with, the partner at the venture capital firm, they felt that the company was far too early, not an uncommon thing for many of our startups. But what was interesting was that this partner saw enough potential in that startup's future product where she said, hey, I'm going to take this ride with you a little longer here. And, I'm willing to serve as an advisor for you. And, let's see if we can help steer this product, towards something that our firm can eventually invest in. So that's another route you can think about. Like if you're active out there and your company is at a point where you're actively pitching, these folks, even though they may, decline your pitch, could always be an advisor and an ally to your company going forward. So here we have an interesting one. We have our person who was working as a validator, and they kind of went to advisor, and then from there they quickly went to a member of the management team. So here the startup was involved in some early product validation. They had a partner who was probably approaching retirement age. And so what happened is that partner, while he was working on the validation studies, pretty much indicated to the startup that he would like to possibly after retirement continue helping the company. And so there was discussions about this person becoming an advisory board member post-retirement. But as things went along, that quickly developed into that person becoming a key member of the startup's management team. And why I've included this here in the case study is I think it's an important one is that, advisory board members do not always have to remain advisory board members. Sometimes the advisory board position is a good way of, working with this person in a maybe a smaller scale way to start. And then after you've worked for a year or two or something like that, maybe it's the time is right for you to bring in that person to the management team. And so, I would encourage everybody to think about, those relationships of, the advisory board member maybe becoming something else to the company. So I think that's pretty much wraps up here this presentation. And so I'll open this up to fuller questions here from the group.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. We have one question on chat. Aisha, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Hi, thank you, Doug, for your wonderful presentation. The question I had is, what if I have the idea of the business, but I still don't have the prototype in hand? So will it be a good time to approach to the advisory groups in that context?
I think if you, so in other words, you don't have a form business, right? Is that what you're saying? You don't have a form business, but you're thinking of having an advisory board?
Yeah, I'm just trying to navigate all the process. I just have an idea and I'm just trying to formulate how to approach this thing with the startup idea.
Yeah, I think so. An advisory board would imply that you would have a company. So the advisory board serve companies, not necessarily individuals. If the person wants to be an informal advisor to you personally, that's another matter. And I wouldn't approach that as assembling an advisory board. Like I would see that person as an informal advisor, but and that said, I would say to you, if you have no company set up yet and you have just an idea, I would probably be very careful about who you share your ideas with if they're not a part of the company.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yep.
Hi, Doug. This is Mehdi.
Hey, Mehdi. How you doing?
Good to see you. I have a probably two-question part. So one is that who selects the both board of directors and advisory board? Is it the CEO, the co-founders? The second question is that what are some of the powers they have in their hands? More specifically, the board of directors. I remember an interview from Mark Zuckerberg saying at some point he disagreed with the board of directors about the acquisition of Facebook. And and then later he restructured the company to have two types of shares, so he has more power. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's a multi-part question for sure. So basically, when you're a small startup, it's the founders who are deciding who is going to be members of their advisory board. It's the founders as well who will decide who is the board of directors in a corporation. I also want to make sure that everybody understands. So, board of directors is usually a thing of C corps. LLCs do not necessarily need a board of directors. You can have something that is very similar to a board, but it's not necessarily required by law as it would be with a corporation. So just want to make sure everybody understands that. But that said, yes, once you have a board that's in place, and if the board has voting power that overrides the founders' voting power, the board can tell the founder what to do and what direction to take the company. And that's why you'll often find, people are very protective of what voting rights that they do give up, and, how many people that they include on the board. Quite often, if you're getting a significant investment, the investor will require to have a board seat, and so that they get a vote for the direction of your company after they're giving you several million to do what you do. So does that answer your question, Mehdi?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you very much. And just maybe one quick question. What about the number of advisors?
Yeah, I don't think there's any rule of thumb for how many you should actually have or not have. Like I said earlier, I think it comes down to your advisors is where are your most important knowledge gaps? What is it that you can't do well that you need to do well for your company to function? So let's say I am an academic founder, and let's say I'm making semiconductors. Let's say I'm really good at designing a semiconductor, but I have absolutely no business experience. Well, then I want to get somebody who can provide that business experience for the company. I can either do that by bringing somebody into the management team, but let's say I'm starting really small. It's just me. I'm a single member LLC, let's say, and I want an advisor to come in and help me with the business end of things. I might get an advisor to help me specifically with, the business end of things. So I would just approach it like, give it like, it's like a two-factor test. What do I need? What skills am I lacking? And what skills do I need absolutely to make this company a success? And I think that's where, you find out whether or not the advisor is absolutely necessary for your company.
Edward, go ahead.
Yeah, so we have an LLC, and you kind of answered part of my question earlier while I was waiting. So we do have an LLC, and we're thinking about doing an advisory board.
Mm-hmm.
We're also raising money. When you're raising money, is a board of directors more appealing to an investor, or is an advisory board a good first start?
So you're an LLC right now, so a lot of investors sometimes do have allergies to LLCs. It's just because C corps have more rules that are attached to them, and so it makes some investors feel a measure more of security. That's not to say an investor won't invest in an LLC, but it's just some of the feedback that you do hear from investors. They would like to see a higher level, I guess, of due diligence when they're investing in a company. But if you have an LLC, you can certainly form an advisory board. I would say, it's not something I would say, do I do one before the other? Like an advisory board I would always attach that to need. So if you need advice, if you need advisement, then, go out and seek those advisors. If you're asking me like, should you have a board of directors for your LLC? That's another question, probably out of the scope of this conversation, but, you would be looking at forming a board which is very similar to a board of directors in a corporation, but you would be doing it at the LLC level, which would either be member managed or manager managed. But I would advise you, like if that's part of your question, I would probably seek out the proper person for that, maybe your corporate counsel or whoever is advising you on that end.
Yeah, we're looking at pretty fast scale over the next 24 months, so that's why I'm anticipating need. So we want to start off right. So, thank you.
Yep.
This was really informative. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Glad I could help.
Ahmed.
Hi. So I have a question about how easy, like, how liberal should someone be in adding people to their advisory board, and how easy or common is it to like remove people from advisory board if they're not helping? Like, for somebody who's starting, like, and they don't know in future if somebody is going to contribute to their work or not, should you just add them, like, if at the beginning it looks like they are like a good fit?
Yeah, so like I guess I wouldn't go willy-nilly adding people. I guess there's a process at the beginning, like really getting to know that person. So I would say probably in all of, even in the case studies that I showed you, there was some prior interactions with between the startup founder and the person who eventually became an advisory board member. I would say, just in general, never be in a rush to add people to your team just for the sake of, like, if it's, check the box, I got an advisory board member. I would say it's probably not a great strategy. These things, they if it's going to be done right, I think they develop and ferment over time. So I would first say, like, if you're out there hunting for an advisory board member and you think you found somebody who could be an ideal advisor for your team, like, get to know that person, go out to dinner with them or, whatever, just try to meet with that person as many times as you can. Really, try to figure out if your needs and your expectations are aligned. So basically, what does that mean? Like, find out how often that person will be available to you. If that person is hour with you today, and after that, I don't really have that much time. They're kind of telling you they don't have the time for your company. So you want to make sure, like, will this person meet on schedules that are necessary for your company to meet? So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. Just like one question, like, how easy is it to remove somebody from an advisory board? Does it depend on the contract, or?
Yeah, I would say, I would have those, those things spelled out in your agreement, when it, would be the time to terminate the person. Definitely, like, if your agreement has milestones in it, like, you would have certain milestones that you're trying to hit by a certain time. And if that person is not helping you hit those milestones, well, then it's probably, time to part company.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Prakash.
Yes. Doug, my name is Prakash. Kelly, thank you.
Prakash.
I actually have an incorporated company. It's just a very early stage startup. I have a couple of people who are interested to work with me. But the funny thing is, I thought of taking them as advisory members or even, as the startup executive team. But their expectation is that, they're confusing an advisory board position with a position on the board of directors. And I've been having a hard time educating them. What do you think is the best strategy I should do? Because I think they are talented, but if they're asking for each, 20 to 30% of the company at this very early stage, I'm not convinced that, I would be making the right decision. What do you think, Doug?
Well, I think anybody who's coming in asking for 20, 30% of your company should have a pretty good plan what they're going to do for your company. That's number one. But if they're asking that much to be an advisor, I would say probably somebody to stay away from. This is just me not knowing anything about the folks you're dealing with, but that would be an awfully high amount to offer an advisory board member. I think, when you're making a startup, whatever, if you have a great idea, you're always going to, be surrounded by people who, want a piece of the action. I would say, as I would advise all the companies that I work with, is, get advice of your corporate counsel. I don't know. Do you have corporate counsel yet?
No, I don't have. At the moment, no.
Yeah, so your corporate counsel and the EIRs at UAlbany can help you, think through, what makes sense. If you're going to bring somebody onto your team, what sort of equity that you offer that person. So one of the main things you want to do is make sure that you never, even if it's somebody you really like and you think they can bring a lot of value, you just don't want to assign them a piece of equity. You want to make sure that there's vesting. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but you want to make sure that there is vesting of that equity, that the person will actually have to perform and spend time with your company. They just can't, come on and, take a large slice of the pie without making a true commitment to the company.
Oh, that's a fantastic answer, Doug. I mean, your thoughts were very much in line with what I was thinking, and it's just reassuring that you're saying the same thing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Ashwari, you have a question?
Yeah. Thank you, Doug. I really appreciate your presentation. It's really clear this idea about the board of directors and advisory board. But I have a question about this board of directors. I learn a lot about advisory board here, but how this board of director panel should look alike. I mean, what supposed to be, how many members supposed to be, and what's supposed to be their expertise, or they would be just investing in your company and they can have, the directorship, or how this supposed to be. Can you just a little bit elaborate on this?
Yeah, well, I would say, it's a fiduciary duty that these folks are carrying out. So I would say you would want to make sure that your board of directors is composed of people who are completely trustworthy, law-abiding, going to be totally capable of making those decisions for your company that are critical and, not be compromised in any way. So that there shouldn't be any conflicts of interest between any other companies that they might serve. So that's, one of the main things. I would say, in terms of number of board of directors, this thing is decided by the bylaws of your company. So you want to have that all spelled out in your articles of incorporation and, all other associated documents. I would say, definitely, as I said earlier, if you have corporate counsel already, I would definitely be speaking to your corporate counsel, about that, about the proper person that you should be bringing in, the amount of people, the voting rights, et cetera, et cetera. It's a deep issue getting into the board of directors because, it is governance of your company. And if you have a board of directors that has controlling power, you as a founder could essentially be taking a back seat to any critical decisions in your company. So I would say that's one of the main concerns when you're forming a board of directors. How much power do they actually have, and how much power will you as a founder retain if you're interested in retaining power?
Okay. Follow-up question on this. Every founder supposed to be part of board of directors, and it might be also depend on how much equity they hold. Is it like that?
Yeah, so you will have a certain amount of votes as an equity holding member. It could be that some people will come on the board maybe as an observer, so they will not have any voting rights, but they will merely observe. And that could be for many reasons. So yeah, there's no one size fits all. I would say it's different. It's different for every company.
Okay. Thank you so much. It is really helpful.
You're welcome.
Doug, there was a question about when you're creating a board that has voting rights, if it's important to have an odd number of individuals to avoid ties.
Well, I think it would be probably good to have an odd number of votes, and there could be one person who has the deciding vote. Maybe that's the actual the original founder or the person who is who maybe started the company to begin with. But yeah, it all comes down to how many votes are assigned to that particular board member.
Okay. One question was, where would you advise new startups to go to find templates, or whom would you advise them to speak with?
Well, I would advise you if you're at UAlbany, I would say lean on your UAlbany EIRs. They should be able to get you the information you need and talk through all these issues about, properly structuring your company and, how your boards are structured, who gets the voting rights, how to bring on advisors and, any kind of associated templates you might need. I would say the best place to start is with your UAlbany advisors.
Okay. And for those who are not members of our incubator?
If you're from SUNY, coming from another campus, you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to help you on my end from RF's Central. If you're from outside the SUNY system, I would say, maybe working with your SBDC, or, if you're from another educational institution, maybe reach out to, whatever commercialization team might be on your at-home campus.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, similar kind of question, the previous one, the timing, but as the timing evolved due to the company's evolution, there is always a point that you need advisors. And also at the same time, of course, when you look them that you'll be looking for. So given the timing or given the constraint we have with the resources such as, we have to invest our time in attracting investors, customers, looking for always more customers. And then how do you think we should balance and use this limited time to attract or to engage with advisors also?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a loaded question. Time is always the most critical component I see with our startups, and how much time our founders have to devote to a company is usually a pretty good indicator whether or not that company is going to be successful. I can't tell you how to manage your time. Everybody is different. I know I devote a lot of time to my family, and so if you're a founder like that and you have to devote a lot of time to your family, you probably have less hours than some founders who don't have to devote that time. So I would say, yeah, everybody has to make their own decisions based upon, their lifestyles and, any of their commitments, whether that's to family or to campus or whatnot. I would say, a good founder, the ones that I see are successful, they're the ones who manage to keep many activities going at once. So that could be, pitching, networking, developing the technology. They have their fingers in a lot of pies at once, and somehow they manage to find the time to devote a little bit of time to everything. So I hope. Not much of a concrete answer for you, but I hope that that helps.
Yeah, from advisory perspective, like, okay, I prioritize, let's say, 10 list, and then always is a top one that prioritize. And then there is a time that you're already going further, and then you're not even getting in one advisor. And how important, how significant is that in the company's evolution is the context I'm trying to ask.
Okay, how important is it for you to spend time on trying to find an advisor?
Yes.
I guess that depends on, what is it your company is lacking. So if you take an honest assessment of your company, what do you need to do to be successful? And you look at all the skill members of yourself and your teammates and you say, boy, we don't have anybody who can do X, right? And if that X is really important, then you should spend time looking for that person. How much time you spend, I can't say, It all depends on, difficulty of finding that person. Like I have seen, in some areas, maybe it's slightly easier to get an advisor than in some other areas. There's some industries and things that are very protective of, their knowledge and, for various reasons. And it might be harder to find somebody in such an industry as that. But, I would not be able to tell you exactly how much time you should devote to finding that person.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's great. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Say good questions, everyone. I just also want to mention we do have another resource in our community called Upstate Venture Connect, UVC, and they have community advocates in several regions around the state. And those community advocates are great at finding individuals with subject matter expertise. So for individual questions or even potentially for advisor or direct board of director asks. So if you're interested in connecting with the UVC community advocate, please reach out to us. I'll put my email in the chat and we'll get you connected to Anton. But if there's no more questions, I will hand it off to Nancy to close this out and just say thank you, Doug.
My pleasure. Glad to answer your questions and hope this was a help to you all.
All right, thank you. That was great. If you are interested in joining an incubator, fill out our incubator inquiry form and we will help you figure out what your best fit is if you don't already belong to one. If you are interested in customer discovery and doing a deep dive, an 8-week deep dive into biz dev, we are currently accepting applications for our next Rise cohort. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays.
Thank you so much.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, Doug.
Bye now.
Yeah, thank you,
My
Doug.
pleasure.
Thank